Hey everyone, welcome back to Week Ahead Astrology Breakdown. I'm Matthew Oliver with Stillwater Alchemy, and I am very happy to announce that I feel like with the transits this week, things are going to be shifting. I know I personally felt this being a Capricorn rising and having a lot of placements in Capricorn, but I posted it on Stillwater's Instagram, and a lot of people this past week have been feeling tired, lethargic, exhausted, emotionally overwhelmed. And so that is also just interesting to note that sometimes, and this comes up later in the astrology question of the week, that we'll look at a period of time, whether it be a week, a month, whatever it is, and maybe be hard on ourselves when our body needs rest to prepare for the expansion that is about to come. And in true Capricorn fashion, given that it's ruled by Saturn, there is going to be time where we need to slow down, we need to build a stronger foundation, we need to have greater boundaries to protect ourselves so that we can go higher or go further and not have to consistently stop, start. So if you needed time to rest over this past week, honor that. If you still need time to rest, note that. And also too, and this came up in the Capricorn full moon workshop, which of course is free. You can go back to it any time, but having resources or having healers or having professionals in your corner to make this process easier so you don't have to feel overwhelmed. And quite honestly, if you felt a certain type of way over this past week with that Capricorn full moon activation, then it was likely to signal out where you need more support, where you need a greater foundation. So don't just gloss over that. Maybe doing some retrospective journaling or seeing what was coming up to the surface to be cleared would prove valuable, because this week things are shifting. And by the end of this week, we're getting ready for the Cancer new moon, which will be happening next Monday. So these weeks are clicking by. So let's hop in to the week ahead, shall we? Boom. So we're on Monday, July 10th, starting at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. One of the biggest things to note here is that we have Mars ingressing into Virgo. And I find this interesting as well, because on Monday, the moon is in a Mars-ruled sign, moon in Aries, and the moon is making that trine to Venus. So I just feel like there's something going to be passionate, something very obvious, very loud, where it's kind of like you want to get your life together. There's going to be likely a clear path, or even something that you want to work on, or maybe some of you are going to be looking for another job or new power, new responsibilities. The thing with this Virgo transit, Virgo being all about editing, purifying, making structures better, stronger, especially on an internal level. Virgo wants to, it's like if you're looking at a grandfather clock, Virgo wants to make sure all the knobs, all the wheels are turning just as such, so that the entire entity of itself can run smoothly. It chimes every 50 minutes, has a big bang every hour kind of thing. So depending on where Virgo falls in your chart, this would be a good time to see where you want to direct focus, drive, and passion to really make things smoother. And we just talked about this a little while ago, right? With that Capricorn full moon, Capricorn also being an earth sign like Virgo. Where are you needing to get things cleaned up to run smoother, to make your life easier? And even without looking at your natal chart, there's probably a very obvious answer that you want to clean things up, or you want to get things in order moving forward. Now, this moon Venus trine is also quite benevolent, very nice as well, in terms of either something pleasurable, working with a feminine energy or a feminine person to release something in order to bring something better. Like I always feel like when a planet transits, especially a personal planet, we're letting go of an energy, or something has culminated to start something new. So if you're working with this moon Venus, is there something more pleasurable, a better relationship, or more power that you can accumulate? Or how do you wish to shine? Like this is going to be a big energy too once Venus stations retrograde in a couple of weeks. But that power, that shine, that connection, pleasure, ease, these are all things I want you to evaluate on Monday. And we also have this moon Mercury square as well. So what's coming through intuitively is like, don't be afraid to ruffle some feathers, go after what you want, If you're feeling selfish, really ask yourself, is this being selfish, or is this going after what I want and what I need to get things orderly and cleaned up so that I can receive more pleasure or more power or more opportunity? And that's going to be different for everyone, that definition. And last, we also have this moon Pluto square on Monday as well. So we can even just classify this as a T-square here between Mercury, Pluto, and the moon. So in terms of your emotional needs or your physical needs, given that the moon also rules over the body, noting, are you happy? How are your relationships? Because this moon Venus trine is very strong. And if you're not, then conversations need to be had to rebalance the power dynamics. And then through that is likely to be a resolution where Mars and Virgo can progress. All right. Boom. Tuesday, in my opinion, is one of the best days of the week because we have this moon Jupiter conjunction. Also, too, depending on time zones, like Tuesday, we're also going to be having the moon Mars trine between the moon and Taurus, Mars and Virgo. So it just seems like there's going to be more opportunity, more expansion, more joy, or just things that you like to do. It doesn't seem like this is going to be a monotonous energy. It's like there's a clear path forward. This is what I've always wanted to do. These are the people that I want to spend time with and share my love and resources with. Now I'm just going to do the thing that is obvious and loud and enjoy the process. That's also something I want you to ask yourself at the start of the week is like, am I enjoying this process? Am I enjoying doing these things in my life, whether it be the mundane rituals that you do or the mundane humanly 3D things like chores and all the things that we need to survive? Are there better ways to do these things? Are there easier ways to do these things? And if so, how can we initiate those processes this week? We can also see that Mercury has now ingressed into Leo. So given that we're going to have this co-presence between Mercury and Venus is slowing down, there may be, given that, like we just said yesterday with that T-square between Mercury, Pluto, and the moon, with Mercury co-present Venus, there might be conversations that are going to be had with your relationships. There might be mindset shifts around your own persona, how you wish to shine, how you wish to accumulate power, fame, notoriety, right? Like we're talking about Mercury, Venus in Leo. Also, we're talking about Mercury in terms of the commerce and business side of things. This also plays into what we were talking about before with Mars moving into Virgo, is that you may be asking yourself where you want to put time into your career sector or the responsibilities or the people that you connect with. So maybe you like your job, you like your position, but you'd like new clients. You want to be in greater connection, or you want to be maybe working closer with a superior or a mentor to clean up some things that are going to make the entire business, corporation, your cohort work smoother and easier, right? So pay attention to that. And then also Tuesday, we have this beautiful moon Saturn sextile. So like I said before, it just seems like this week we're getting things in order to make our life easier. And I think it'll be very easy and pleasurable to do so on Tuesday, just with this moon Jupiter conjunction alone. Now, Wednesday, we have this moon Uranus sextile, the moon Uranus conjunction in Taurus, and then the moon sun sextile here, which is quite nice, and then the moon squaring Venus. So as you can tell, Venus is getting a lot of action this week. There's a lot going on with this beautiful planet before she stations retrograde on the 22nd. So if you remember last week, Venus was in very close aspect to Uranus pretty much all week. So part of me thinks that with this moon Uranus conjunction, moon Venus square, that there's likely to be something around love, relationships, beauty, pleasure, creativity that's going to come. With Uranus, it can kind of be a Pandora's box, if I'm being honest. It could go either way, especially with this square between the moon and Venus. So it could be something to do with love and relationships. It could be most likely something to do with relationships in general, including the one with yourself, right? And if we're talking about moon in Taurus, there is this slowing down, smelling the roses, feeling safe in the body. And so sometimes, especially with Uranus involved, it's switching it up or moving yourself out of your comfort zone, which at first might be annoying or irritating to the person, but in the long run, it's going to make things exponentially easier. So an example of this is maybe you're feeling a certain type of way about your friendship, and there's something that's been weighing on you, and it just isn't the right time to address this topic. And then finally you address it. It might be uncomfortable at first, but then moving forward, both people in that friendship are now understanding each other's wants and needs, and it ends up working out better for everyone. Now you can substitute friendship for marriage or partner or boss. It doesn't matter. And this can also be you wanting to change your own style or what it means for you to spend money, how much money you want to make. We're talking about money very much connected to Taurus. There could also be business negotiations or business deals given this energy here with Mercury now in Leo. So self-worth, power, comfort, just noting those things on Wednesday. And of course, the moon is also making that sextile to Neptune on Wednesday. So increased intuition. I would just, before making any hasty decisions, taking time to ground yourself and slowing down Tuesday and Wednesday when the moon is in Taurus will serve you very well. And if you're unsure, take a minute or two to breathe into your body, maybe even going outside and planting your feet on earth to see what your body is telling you once you've taken yourself and grounded the energy that's needed to make that decision, or before you have that maybe anxious conversation. Because a lot of times, like, that's all air energy, or like thoughts, how things are going to play out, all these ideas. But if we can ground it in earth, if we can allow ourselves to feel safe, that will be the energy that we will move into that conversation or that negotiation with, which will inevitably make an easier outcome for you. Now, also too, there's a lot of things going on this week, clearly. The moon is also making a trine to Pluto on Wednesday throughout the day. So this is also, in my opinion, quite strong because a big energy of Pluto is power and truth. Also, control and obsession can be the shadow aspect. So knowing what you want to feel safe and secure in life, in relationships and wealth, likely to come through on Wednesday. And I just keep hearing it over and over. So take it if it resonates. I just think there's going to be a lot of career shifts or power dynamic shifts or how you want to move to make money. And that can also be in marriage, too, right? There could be relationships where you're contemplating, I'm paying for this, they're paying for that. How is this going to work? How are we going to invest our money? Is this investment worth it? Like, all these different things are likely to come up Tuesday, Wednesday. So pay attention to that. And another thing that keeps coming through intuitively is like, don't forego your own needs and desires and what you need to feel comfortable, especially if you're more of like maybe a Venusian or have a lot of Libra or Taurus in your chart, where you're always wanting to make the other person happy. This week, and potentially even now with Venus moving through her pre-retrograde shadows, you get to recalibrate how your relationships work with you and for you. So I'm just going to leave it there. Thursday, the moon is now in Gemini, making that square to Mars and the sextile to Mercury. So this is nice because, as you all can see, we don't have any planets in air signs right now. So whenever the moon is in an air sign, it brings some much needed balance or energy that we're all needing. So this is going to be a great day, obviously, to be curious, to use those mercurial energies. And I like that the moon is in a Mercury ruled sign. It can see that Mercury and Leo by sextile. So if you're wanting to do any kind of promotions, email marketing, content creation, Thursday would be a phenomenal day to do so. Be careful though. We do, not by exact degree, but we almost have like another T-square situation between the moon in Gemini, Saturn in Pisces, Mars in Virgo. However, the moon is moving so quickly that it's not an exact T-square. But given that the moon is in square to both malefic planets, Mars and Saturn, this kind of goes back to my note that I said when the moon was in Taurus is slow down. There's likely to be something that you really want to talk about or express, given that the moon is making that square to Mars. But with this square to Saturn, it's like, what have you learned? Where do you need to have discernment? How can you approach a conversation or an idea or commerce in a way that's going to benefit you? And this is also something too, because relationships, of course, are just going to be amplified with this Venus retrograde, is that if you're in your head about wanting to talk about something, moon in Gemini, especially with the moon making a square to Mars, where it's like, how can I do this? How can I work? How can I perform? How can I express my frustrations? While also having Saturn here. Part of me thinks that for some of you, having a more disciplined practice with expressing your emotions, whether it is journaling, whether it's with a coach, whether it's a therapist, is going to be exponentially rewarding. This could also mean that you're booking in a session with a coach, therapist, or someone that can hold space for you. But I think that if you stay in your head, it's not going to serve you well on Thursday. So if there's a way that you can express yourself, and also too, for some of you might be holding space for others that might be bouncing off the walls in that more mercurial or air-like fashion. Just noting where you even need time for self-care, which is going to come up later this week as well when the moon goes into her balsamic dark moon phase. Where do you need time for yourself? Where do you need time to express yourself? Who are you wanting to express yourself with? And how is this energy going to serve you moving forward? These are just some things I want you to think about, mull over on Thursday. And if you feel like going off on someone because maybe they're not doing their job or because they're not showing up in the way that you want or need, that's where I think having this moon Saturn energy would serve you well. And I think this is going to be a good lesson for all of us Thursday, Friday, as we're getting ready for this new moon in Cancer, is that with that Gemini ruled part of your chart, where is the balance? Where is that polarity? Where can you feel comfortable going and initiating, and where do you need to slow down? I feel like that's going to make more sense on Thursday when you get there. So don't overthink this right now. But on Thursday, a journal prompt or something to think about is like, where do I need to slow down so that I can move forward faster? And this doesn't have to be like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of situation. It's just like, I need to slow down in these areas of my life so that when it's time to perform, I have the energy and the strength and the mental clarity to do so. Okay. Now, Friday, there's a lot going on just because the moon is making that applied square to Neptune. I was thinking about something else here. Just give me one moment. Part of me also thinks that with the moon making that sextile to Venus, moon making a square to Neptune, that some of you might have your boundaries blurred when it comes to past lovers. And you could be in a relationship, you could be married, you could be at a job, and this could be past lovers or like past coworkers or colleagues trying to like slide into the DMs or email you or text you being like, oh, hey, like we should do this. Do you want to hang out? And this is where I think Thursday is really going to be important to know where your boundaries are, to know where you need to slow down and have discernment so that you're not just making a flippant or impulsive decision. Now, I think using your words to express where you're at in these relationships would be beneficial. But if you're not going to use your words and just seek the validation, and part of me thinks that they're going to be saying what you want to hear. They're going to be like, oh, you look so amazing, da 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 da, like we should hang out sometime, we should do this, we should do that, because that Venus in Leo, she likes to have her ego stroked, made to feel pretty and fabulous and amazing. However, it's just for me, like the moon in Gemini, this is active for everyone, right? So the words, the communication, potentially the manipulation through words. And again, manipulating something or someone isn't bad. We all manipulate energy to manifest. But the shadow side of manipulation is where the boundaries that we've had for ourselves, for our emotions, for our healing, Pisces energy, just be careful. Also, again, on the flip side, you could be someone holding space for someone. They're like, oh, do you think it's a good idea if I go out on a date with blank? It's kind of like, this reminds me of when Carrie would always go back to Mr. Big and Sex and the City, and everyone, all of her friends were like, what are you doing? You don't have any boundaries. You haven't done the work to heal from this. Why are you going back to him? And sometimes you might just have to be that supportive, loving energy. And sometimes you need to make sure that you are protecting your own energy from having that drama. Sometimes the Leo energy can be dramatic, the drama in your life spill over. So just make sure that you are protected, that you know where your value and your self-worth is, so the boundaries are not being muddied. Okay. And like I said, there is a really strong energy here with the moon Venus sextile to express yourself in relationships so that there is no confusing energy. So if the other person's like, well, I thought you said this and we could do this, and what about that? You're like, no, moving forward, this is how it's going to be. Like using your words in a positive, more forward manner to help you win. And I think that's also going to make Mars in Virgo happy as well. If you can directly state in words, in writing, so that there is no confusion, that there is no nebulous energy, which can sometimes be a very direct result of a Neptune transit or activation. And also, now that the moon is getting closer and closer to the sun in Cancer, we are in that dark moon phase, that balsamic moon phase, moving into the weekend. So this is just something to note, that if you're feeling like you just need to hermit, be reclusive, focus on yourself, focusing on healing as well is really important. I think that's not really said enough, that there can be really intense intuitive downloads, spiritual breakthroughs during that dark moon phase, in the dark night of the soul, so to speak. Also, another plug to read Mysteries of the Dark Moon by Demetra George. If you have not yet, it's a phenomenal book, and it also speaks to the dark moon phase and how we can use it to our advantage and how they've used it in history. So yes, take time to rest if needed, to recalibrate, and that there is, because I think we've all been there when you're exhausted, overwhelmed, when there's maybe a low-hanging fruit or an instant pleasurable opportunity, like a past lover or a very tempting offer. It might be more easier to take just to feel good in that moment, but we're being asked to shift that and to use our words to our advantage, to clear up any messiness, to make sure we're not trapped in this nebulous Neptune-like fog moving forward. It's kind of like you're in the ship and there's fog everywhere, but you know what you have to do. You're not just going to roll over. You're just like, no, we're going to stay the course. I know if we keep doing these things, we're going to reach our destination. We just need to have faith. And you're the captain of the ship. You need to make sure that the entire crew isn't losing their minds, or they're not giving up hope. And if the captain can be the mind, in this case, with the moon in Gemini, it's taking care of your entire body to see the next destination, to see the next day, to see the purpose of why you're doing all this work anyway. All right. Now, Saturday, we're also coming off that moon Neptune square. So depending on how Friday night went, there might be clarity. Things might be getting easier. Like I said, we're still working with this balsamic dark moon phase. So really just taking time for yourself to rest, to recalibrate, is going to be a very strong energy throughout this weekend. And I mean, the moon is at 29 degrees on Saturday. So like Saturday and Sunday, the moon is primarily going to be in Cancer, depending on your time zone. So this is just nice, given that the moon is at home in the sign of Cancer. Moving throughout Saturday, especially on Sunday, we see that we have this moon Jupiter sextile. So there might just be benevolence or kindness or comfort or ease. This kind of feels like going back to your parents' house on a Sunday and they're cooking you dinner, or going over to a friend's place, or like, just come over, just bring yourself. We have all this food prepared. We just want to make sure that you're okay. Like, it feels like that kind of an energy, whether that manifests literally, or if it's an energy where you just feel safe and comforted. This can also be an energy that you're getting everything purged, cleaned, released, to then welcome in these new moon energies that'll be on Monday, July 17th. Okay. Boom. So the astrology question of the week piggybacks and expands on last week's question. And last week's question was all about, should I be anxious about blank transit? Because there's a lot of content out there on social media around certain transits that are happening, especially retrogrades or eclipses. And so if you want to recap that question, you can go back to last week's video. But this week, the question is, I like your take on how and why not being anxious around certain transits is beneficial. But I have a question for you there. I had a Saturn-Jupiter-square and a Saturn-Neptune-square in spring, and I can tell you they knocked the life out of me entirely. I haven't felt so bad for a long time. They lasted for about 4 to 5 weeks. Now I saw that due to the retrograde of Saturn, I'm going to have this again twice, all together for about 4 months. How on earth am I supposed to not be anxious given my experience? Any idea for me how to get through that again for such a long time? Thanks. So, and there was also a comment right below, which was, you are not your mind, you are the self observing the mind, from The Untethered Soul, which I think is a beautiful recommendation. Knowledge is power. But I also know given my own experience with certain transits, especially with outer planets that last a bit longer. That's kind of like if you're in the eye of a hurricane or if your house is flooding, sometimes you're like, you literally have to deal with this 3D mundane human experience. And sometimes it is just extremely difficult. So to answer this question, number one, for anyone going through a tricky transit, or maybe an outer planet is now retrograding, making a more or numerous hard aspects, a hard aspect being a square, opposition, and sometimes a conjunction, depending on the planets. If you've already had it happen once before, then you know how to brace, prepare, and support yourself moving forward. It would be like if you always get anxious before writing an exam, and then you have another exam coming up. If you didn't do anything to rectify it, if you didn't seek out any support or any help, it's likely to be the exact same experience because you haven't done any work to shift or support why it was so turbulent to begin with. So given these squares are happening between Neptune and Saturn and Jupiter, Saturn and Neptune are the ones that are maybe a bit more tricky. So Neptune, like I said earlier in the video, can be very confusing. It can be nebulous. And like I said, it's easy to say all the right things with regards to mindset and grounding, but from personal experience and from client experiences, it can be very overwhelming because it can be very confusing, or it feels like what's real and what's not. So with the tricky Neptune transit, you need to have additional grounding. And this, again, I'll bring this up one more time. Like I talked about in the Capricorn full moon workshop, you need support. We all need support. We're not meant to do this alone. And I mentioned this in the last week's breakdown of the question. If you know that you're going through a difficult time in life, you are going to want to ask for support. It'd be like if you know that you have very harsh winters and that you need to have a garden with a harvest so that you can have food prepared for winter to feed yourself and your family, and you choose not to tend to the garden. And then in the winter, you are hungry and relying on other people's generosity to feed you. That's one strategy. Or like, well, maybe this year I'm going to purchase land in addition to my own to have even more food so I can support myself. So that way, if there is hail or I don't have enough crops from the one piece of land, it's here for another. And this is one thing too, that in this timeline, they said it's about 4 months. Yes, 4 months is a long time. It's also not a long time if you think about it. Number two, if we're talking about outer planets, and I would consider outer planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, the exact aspect, in my opinion, would be the exact degree. So yes, you can still feel it within a 3-degree orb is what I would give. Other astrologers might give a 5-degree orb or a 10-degree orb. Most astrologers, from my experience, would give a 3-degree orb for an outer planet transit. So like they're saying, it's going to be about 4 months. To ease anxiety, you'll feel it the most prominently, whether it's a good aspect or a bad aspect, on the exact degree of that aspect. So that can help to eliminate some anxiety there. Secondly, like I said, if you've already dealt with this once, it's almost like if you could go back to that version of yourself and offer support and guidance on how you navigated that, what would you tell them? And is that advice applicable to you now? And what can you do to support yourself with resources or mindset or grounding or rituals to aid you moving forward, knowing how that feels? Kind of going back again to either the gardening analogy or taking an exam and having anxiety around it. There are likely tools to help you. And at the end of the day as well, from a spiritual standpoint, you can take this if it resonates. You have guardian angels that are literally waiting to help you at any time of the day. You never exhaust this resource. It's always there. You have your spirit guides, you have ancestors, you have God, Goddess, Source, Universe. You have all these spiritual, heavenly, miraculous energies willing and wanting to support you every single day. Whether or not you want to utilize that is up to you. That'd be like having a grocery store with food that was free. All you had to do was walk to the grocery store and pick up the food. If you don't want to walk to the grocery store and pick up the food, that's fine. It's available to other people who want to walk to the grocery store and pick up the food. It literally is that miraculous and that easy. So if you wish to either ask for a reframe, ask for support, ask for your guardian angels, divine support and intervention to help you, to hold you, to help navigate you through a tricky transit or any part of your life. It doesn't have to be astrology related. Now we're kind of branching off into the spiritual side of things. It's available for you so that you don't ever have to feel like you're alone. To know that there is guidance and support around you every second of every day. All you need to do is ask. Okay. So let me know how that resonates. Feel free to drop any comments about how you're feeling or moving with this Mars in Virgo transit or the Mercury in Leo transit. And remember, it just seems like, even as I was recording this, a lot of stuff around relationships, especially old or past relationships, coming back into refocus, making sure that your mind is clear and grounded where you need to slow down so that you can move forward in a more efficient manner, especially near the end of the week. And then the weekend is perfect for self-care, for hermiting, for ensuring that your body, home, vessel are all secure to then welcome in the blessings of the Cancer new moon, which will be next week. So I'm wishing you all a fabulous week ahead, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.